Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to ACC Race Nation. I'm Jack Millington, your commentator as part of Season 10. We're here live during qualifying for round 2 at the circuit Paul Ricard in Le Castellet, France. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be commentating this evening. It's really exciting action that is going to be in store for us over the next hour or so. If you are watching, thank you for joining in on the stream. It's going to be really good to see how the drivers navigate around this 3.586 mile circuit with 15 corners. Obviously, with this track iteration that we've got this season that we're using here in ACC Race Nation, we're using the layout without the Mistral chicane. So it's a complete blast out of turn 8 all the way towards signs at turn number 9. So it's going to be a real interesting mix of drivers fighting it out for overall honours, and setups are going to be critical around here too. Do the drivers decide to sacrifice a little bit of time on the straights to have a perfectly balanced car in sector 1 or sector 3, or do they decide to just say we'll hang on to the car in the first sector and the final sector and have a big missile down the straights? We shall wait and find out over the course of the next 15 minutes in this qualifying session, and then a full hour of racing in front of us. So here we are. What a track to be racing around. It's the first time that we've been able to broadcast live from Paul Ricard. It's good to watch the drivers navigate this, I think, a very fascinating circuit. He has been around for a long time, as Paul Ricard. It was opened in 1970, probably one of the safest tracks, well, the safest track in the world when it first opened, and it still is incredibly safe. Lots of runoff areas as we follow Neil Wright through the right-hander at turn 9. You know, just shows you the amount of room to have a mistake for the drivers. So we shouldn't be having any major incidents this evening. Let's get the timing tower up so that we can see where everybody is out on the timing screens at the moment. We've got a few drivers in this evening who are debutants. They missed round 1, but they are here tonight in France. Let's go through those drivers, the first of which is the name of Skunky High, aka Andy Skunky, the 302 Ferrari, currently provisionally fastest of all here in the opening 6 and a bit minutes of qualifying. The next other debutants, well, there's 2 others, I should say. The first one, following on from, of course, Andy Skunky, is Davy Zout, who I believe has some relationship with Danny Zoutenbayer, who is Zout 101. Davy Zout also electing for the Ferrari. So Davy Zoutenbayer, Danny Zoutenbayer. See if those 2 Ferrari drivers can have some action on circuit. It'd be great to see those. The other driver as well making their debut this evening is Matthew Seller in the BMW M4. The 444 TMK Racing 444 is making his debut this evening. One driver who is also appearing, he was meant to race in race 1 but was unable to do so, Sebastian Berger in the Porsche 992. So we've got 2 Porsches on track, which is Neil Wright will be delighted about. He's got a Porsche friend at long last. At the 585 of Don Granato II. Wonder what happened to Don Granato the first. Hey, everybody. And one other returning driver from last season. He had a few sporadic appearances. Jeffrey Van Buren in the 296 Ferrari. He is back today. So not a new driver is Jeffrey Van Buren. Raced with us last season, of course. We'll see how he navigates the Paul Ricard circuit. Let's get out on track. Let's try and get a lap on board with one of the drivers. We've been following Neil Wright for quite a long time. Let's get on board with him. Let's see if he goes onto a flying lap. I hope he does, otherwise we've built it up for nothing. So out of the final corner comes Neil Wright towards turn number 1. Building his way up through the gears in the Porsche 992. 5th gear utilised. He gets up to 6th. He's going to brake at the 100-metre marker board on the right-hand side. Down through to 3rd. Runs a little bit wide and obviously couldn't get the car to catch its way back through the exit of turn 2. But Wright carries on. Slight left-hander here, but not classified as a corner. Difficult braking zone for turn 3. Got to go over the curbs. Can unsettle these GT3 cars. As you can see, the Porsche bouncing over the curbs at turn 4. Down through to 1st gear for Neil Wright at turn 6. And hesitantly gets on the power for turn 7. I imagine there's going to be, completely flat out through turn number 8. And it's a long blast now towards Signs. The Porsche picking up speed as it hurtled towards Signs. 165 miles an hour as you go past the Mistral chicane. 170 now. Can it reach 175? Yes, it can. There's an incline now, so it's quite hard for the car to go any faster than that. Down on the brakes into 5th gear. 145 miles an hour for the Porsche driver. He's got to get this braking zone right. It comes at him in 2 chunks, in 2 parts of the corner, and sure enough, Wright downshifts to 2nd. Gets the car lined up on the power nice and early. This left-hander here, again, it's a long sweeping left-hander. Got to be patient before you can get on that throttle. And the exit wasn't too bad. Through turn 13, into 14, another long sweeping left-hander here. But it's just all about getting the line right into the final corner at turn number 15, which he does indeed. He fires out of the corner. It won't be an improvement on Wright's overall lap time. He's a couple of tenths off the pace there. But still, Wright finds himself in the top 10, which he will be pleased about. It's Mark Chapman, though, the man leading the way after the halfway stage of qualifying. He's updated his livery, has Mark. He's got the traditional Gulf Racing colour scheme livery he's got on the Aston Martin, with the blue, the orange and the white. So the 111 in pole position at the moment. It's Andy Skunky in 2nd place. Danny Zoutenbayer is in P3. It's Sebastian Berger then in P4. Anthony Hunt, our race winner last week at Indianapolis, he is in 5th position. Jeffrey Van Buren is 6th. Our reigning champion Stuart Packham is in 7th place. There we had Neil Wright in 8th. John Wells is in 9th position in that M4, and Ross Harris rounds out the top 10. Tom Creed back for season 10. He missed last week, but the orange Mustang this time taking to the track, the number 13. Be interesting to see how Tom Creed compares with Anthony Hunt. He's only 4 tenths off the back of last week's race winner, but Tom Creed was the standard pace setter for the Mustang drivers in season 8 and was level with Jordan Harding during season 9. Michael van der Waal has just popped himself up into 8th place, as has Sebastian Berger right the way up to 2nd place. So great effort from the Porsche. Davey Zoutenbayer in 13th, Steve Hall 14th, Dennis Penders having a huge slide at turn number 11, gets away with it and pulls off to the side of the track. Tony Manley, Joel Van Beek, Joe Warner, he's coming towards the pit exit. There he goes, he's flying out of the pit exit actually. Yet to set a lap time, Matthew Seller, Remy Fermi, and that is the 20 cars that we have in our session this evening. Let's have a watch of the drivers going down the Mistral straight. I want to see how quick the cars are. The McLaren 720S Evo that we're following at the moment is getting to 175, 176, about the same as the Porsche. Joe Warner's just exiting turn 7. He'll fire to the left-hand side at turn 8. Let's see what the McLaren does in terms of its top speed. It'll be an important factor into today's race, so it's important that we understand the strengths and weaknesses of the cars that we're watching this evening. And that McLaren building up speed nicely to 174, 75, 76. It will do. Can it nudge 177? Not quite on this occasion. Remy Fermi we're following at the moment. He's now out on track. He's not yet set a lap time. Tom Creed, curious to see how he gets on. John Wells doing 178 in that BMW, so a little bit more top end there for the M4 driver. I'm just flicking through the drivers just to see who is where out on circuit. That's Danny Zoutenbayer going off the road. 172 miles an hour for Dennis Penders, so a little bit slower for the Ferrari. We've just missed Joel Van Beek in the Aston Martin that still looks like a Honda NSX with the way the livery is shaped at the front of the car. Michael van der Waal. Let's see what the McLaren driver can do down this main straight. We've got another car which I think is Tom Creed behind him. In fact, it isn't. I actually think it's Davy Zoutenbayer. Yes, it is. It's Davy Zoutenbayer who's behind us. But Michael van der Waal up through the gears. 6th gear, 175, 176, potentially just about. Car's looking relatively equalised. What I'm trying to find, what I'm looking to explore, is one of the Mustangs. I've just missed Tom Creed going down the main straight, which is a little bit frustrating. Anthony Hunt is in the pits by the looks of it. Yeah, he is. So it's all about trying to find any of the other drivers who we've missed in the Ford camp. It's obviously just Anthony and Tom Creed, so let's go back to where Tom Creed was. We'll follow him on for the first half of the lap. We've got a yellow flag out there. I think, yeah, Michael van der Waal just returned to the pits. We've got less than 5 minutes to go in this qualifying session. I'm fascinated to see how it looks like the drivers are relatively equalised in terms of downforce. They all seem to be having the same sort of top speed, pretty similar anyway. There's only a 1 or 2 mile an hour difference in it under their own steam. But the Mustangs historically have always had just a little bit more oomph down the main straights. I want to see Tom Creed now build his way up through the gears. He's definitely up on this lap. He's 6/10 up as well, so he's had a really nice first sector. The Mustang driver building up now to what is going to be 6th gear shortly. I mean, he's actually deciding to buzz the limiter. 175, 176, 177 might come along. Yeah, there it is. I think Creed can go a little bit quicker than that. I think he's playing about with the top end of his gear ratios there. When to shift and change gear. We can just find that little bit of extra time. But we do have 3.5 minutes remaining in the session. Let's return back to the garage. It is still Mark Chapman, who is on pole position by 2.5 tenths from Sebastian Berger. There's Andy Skunky in the Ferrari in 3rd position. Danny Zoutenbayer's 4th. Steve Hall, that's a bit more like it, from our Season 8 champion. He's in 5th position. Stuart Packham now leaving the pits. He's the last driver within a second. But watch out for Tom Creed. If his lap was anything to go by before he nicks into the sub 1 second gap into 7th place, I feel Tom Creed's got a little bit more time available to him. Go a little bit quicker. Can Anthony Hunt find anything? Jeffrey Van Buren, he's going quite slowly down the main straight. Michael van der Waal is in 10th. Still have 2 drivers yet to set a qualifying lap. One of them, of course, we're on board with Matthew Seller. And there he goes, up to 17th place for the M4 driver. There's a group of cars all together really down at the back of the field. Joel Van Beek and Joe Warner. And Warner gets himself within 5 seconds of pole position. But I think he'd be quite encouraged by the fact that he's got a couple of cars around him. And maybe those 3 can all battle together and maybe learn from one another. Figure out how they can perhaps gain more speed. We shall see on that one. Remy Fermi, the other driver, the final driver, yet to set his qualifying effort. We've got 1 minute 38 seconds left in the session. Remy Fermi still yet to set a valid lap time. So this is going to be his last effort, because a lap time around here, as you can see on the left-hand side of the timing tower, does take just under 2 minutes. So that is going to be a challenge for anyone else who's not out there. So I'm just watching the tracker map on the left-hand side of your screen, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just looking to see who's going around the Mistral Straight, because these are going to be the last people, I think, who can set a lap time realistically. And I think Neil Wright has just had a spin on the exit of turn 1, and that has just scuppered his final flying lap. So 40 seconds remaining. We're following our debutant of Matthew Seller. We've got a whole host of cars in the pits now. They're not going to improve. Round the final corner for the M4 driver. Can he make any improvement here over the start-finish line? Looks to be he's going to stay where he is for the time being. But he's got time for that last lap. There's nothing else to see. Mark Chapman, he is into the pits. He's not going to make any further improvements. Can Joe Warner get across the line? He can. Can Steve Hall? No, he hits the checkered flag. So that's it. Game over for Steve Hall. He isn't making any improvements. We've got a yellow flag. I think Anthony Hunt is off the road and back into the pits. He's gone off between turns 9 and 10. Remy Fermi hasn't got a valid lap time. He does now. That's better. That's a good effort from Remy. That's going to put him into the 156s, 156.7. Dennis Penders comes towards the start-finish line. It's a marginal improvement, but not quite enough. Don Granato, I think, is in the pits. Yes, he's just gone back there. So Tom Creed, our last of the top 7 runners to set a valid lap time. Well, it moves him up to 6th place, and he'll be pretty happy with that. Tom Creed retaking his mantle of being the fastest Mustang driver. Gave it to Anthony Hunt for one race and has decided he wants it back. What about the BMW here of number 444, Matthew Seller? Can he close that gap down between himself and Joel Van Beek? He's got a couple of corners to go. This is the penultimate one as he goes around the left-hander into the final corner here at turn number 15. He's got to squeeze on the power quickly, get on the throttle. And is he going to make any improvements? The answer is yes. Gets past Joel Van Beek and he's 3.1 off the pole position time. So it's Mark Chapman who takes his first pole of the season. Well done to him. He'll be delighted with that effort. Second place will go the way of Sebastian Berger. Third place will be Andy Skunky. So 2 debutants in the top 3. See how they get on at their launch. Danny Zoutenbayer is 4th in the Ferrari. Steve Hall rounds out the trio of Ferraris in 5th place on row 3. Tom Creed is 6th in the first of the Mustangs, then it's Stuart Packham in the Aston Martin in 7th place. Anthony Hunt, last week's race winner, is 8th and the first of the drivers beyond a second of pole position lap time. Jeffrey Van Buren is 9th with Michael van der Waal in 10th place. On row 6 we have John Wells, Neil Wright. Row 7 we have Ross Harris and Davy Zoutenbayer on debut in 14th there. Dennis Penders and Smokey Devil are on row number 8. And if you're wondering, Smokey Devil is of course Remy Fermi. Tony Manley and Matthew Seller are on row 9. It's Joel Van Beek and Joe Warner on the final row 10. And that was quite a competitive qualifying session. There's 7 drivers within a second of pole position. The midfield between Anthony Hunt down to Davy Zoutenbayer are separated by less than a second. And then we have this third group a little bit further back from Dennis Penders to Joe Warner. Those 5 or 6, 7 drivers there who might be having their own little battles on their own during this race. We will wait and see. The session's due to start just a few moments. There we are, session due to start in less than 2 minutes' time. So we'll be getting underway in just a few moments' time. I'm going to have a quick moment, quick breather. Less than 60 seconds until race start here at Paul Ricard. Drivers will of course have to make a mandatory pit stop during the race. And the thing with Paul Ricard as well is that it is quite a wide circuit. We shouldn't be having hopefully too many issues with damage. We shouldn't be seeing drivers firing it off into the wall unless it's at turns 9 and 10 at signs. We will wait and see how that plays out, but hopefully there's no issues going into the opening corner. We've got the timing tower up on the bottom left. Of course, I can't flick through all the drivers in one lovely fell swoop, even though I've got a officially supported keyboard for PlayStation. Assetto Corsa does not seem to enjoy my replay antics, or not even replay antics, live commentary antics. But the countdown has begun and Chapman leads us away for the formation lap. And Chapman in a really good position here, not only of course getting pole position, but last week looked very competitive in his Aston Martin. Had a really, really good race. And what I would say is that, you know, had it not been for his spin that he had in the middle of the race where he was trying to chase down Anthony Hunt, he could have won it. You know, he had the speed to beat him on that day, but he just squandered that opportunity. And in the end, Anthony Hunt was the one who took that first place, the first victory of the season. Just to give you an idea of the race results from last week, I'll give you the top 10 drivers. So we have Anthony Hunt won last week with Mark Chapman in second. Steve Hall, who lines up in 5th place today, he was third last week. He had a quite solid race, actually, did Steve. Rover Rakatamanga was 4th. He isn't here, sadly, this evening, but Rakatamanga was very close again to getting that maiden podium position. Danny Zoutenbayer is 5th in the championship standings, but he's 4th on the grid tonight. Nicola Gradan isn't here. Ross Harris actually had a race that was quite quiet last time out, so he'll be quite happy with his 7th place results. John Wells was 8th, Dennis Penders was 9th, and Stuart Packham was 10th. And the reason why Stuart Packham was 10th, ladies and gentlemen, and I didn't get the chance to talk about this last week, I was unaware, is that he slowed down thinking it was the final lap, and when he crossed the start-finish line, he got overtaken by both Penders and John Wells before he realised that he hadn't actually completed the final lap and he needed to go around the track one more time. So, advice for everybody here who was watching, if you're new to GT racing or new to Assetto Corsa or anything like that, even champions make mistakes like that. So, don't kick yourself if you're in a league race and you're having a bit of a daft moment. It happens to the best of us. But for this evening, if you are watching on the Twitch channel, thank you very much. If you are watching, there's quite a few of you in here, which is really lovely to see. If you could give me a follow, that would be fantastic. Whoever follows me next will give me the 100th follower on my Twitch channel, which would be lovely. But it will also mean that you get to see all of the ACC Race Nation action streamed live this season. So that's the main reason, really, why you want to be following this. Excuse me, my apologies. If you are watching on YouTube later on, obviously after when the race has been broadcast live and you watch it later on the upload, do like and subscribe. That would be great. I don't normally do stuff like that, but there we are. It's a different type of economy. Hello to you, Philip Chapman. Hope you're doing okay, matey. He said great comms. It's very kind of you to say, of course, but let's see how the race gets on. Thankfully, for the first time, I think ever on Assetto Corsa Competizione, I can switch between first and second place. It's both Mark Chapman and Sebastian Berger, so I hope those two stay first and second all the way through. We can just watch their gap. So we'll ride on board with Berger. No relation to Gerhard as far as I'm aware, but he's on the inside as we approach the final corner. It will be down to these two to react quickly. As I just say that, it'll be down to the two of them to react quickly to the flag being waved, the green flag, to start round 2 of the season of season 10 of Assetto Corsa Competizione with ACC Race Nation, and the race is live. 2 drive-through penalties already. It's a great start from Sebastian Berger. He launches himself into the lead. A little bit further back though, Danny Zoutenbayer's on the outside of Andy Skunky and Mark Chapman. They just need to try and get through there relatively cleanly. Danny Zoutenbayer up into what is second place on the road. Great start for him. Chapman going back a couple of spots. Steve Hall's up to 4th. That's a car off the road, and that's a huge accident in the background for Neil Wright. And I was just saying before the race started, I wouldn't expect anyone to be in the barriers, but sadly for Neil Wright, that is the case. And he's been jettisoned into the barrier between turn 3 and 4. And that is that for Neil Wright. That's going to be terminal damage, I would imagine. John Wells and Dennis Penders, the 2 drivers who picked up drive-through penalties. That was a bit daft, unfortunately, for those 2. But with Michael van der Wal, and this is going to be the first example we get, ladies and gentlemen, of the drivers slipstreaming one another. And look at Tom Creed. I was just saying, look at Tom Creed in the Ford Mustang, just blasting past Jeffrey Van Buren. And Anthony Hunt looking to try and make a move on the car in front of him. Van der Wal on the inside of Stuart Packham, and that looks like a nice clean move from the McLaren driver, but Packham trying to fight back on the inside of turn number 14. Turn 12, rather. But that's a good move, and Michael van der Wal gets in front. Joe Warner's battling with both Joel Van Beek and Matthew Seller. And Remy Fermi. Oh, Dennis Penders very late. John Wells saw that. Oh, and there's contact. Is that contact between Fermi and John Wells? That looked very peculiar. And the 2 drivers who got the drive-through penalties are going straight in. That looked very peculiar. I don't want to just put that on Fermi and say that it was his fault. That looked very odd. But thankfully, no major damage done. Everybody carries on, and Fermi planted behind the rear wheel. Oh, and now there definitely is contact. between Van Beek and Fermi. So if the first one might have been a little bit of a glitch, that one certainly wasn't the case. So accidents aplenty further down the field. Ross Harris at the back of this queue, and that's John Well. That is Tom Creed at the front of this pack. So Tom Creed's come through. Let's just go back to the garage so that we can get the situation as it stands. Anthony Hunt is right behind Jeffrey Van Buren, and right behind him is Michael van der Waal down this main straight. Everyone's going to be hunting for the slipstream. And that McLaren of Van der Waal was on the Mistral curbs and just about got away with that. It unsettled the car. That could have been a huge accident. Jeffrey Van Buren, though, keeps that position, and Hunt's going to run wide. So opportunity up the inside for Van der Waal. Hunt tries to close the door, but the McLaren is through. And Stuart Packham just watching this as it develops in front of him. Mark Chapman has got past Danny Zoutenbayer, but at the moment it's Sebastian Berger leading the way in that Porsche 992. Mark Chapman second, with Danny Zoutenbayer in third. Steve Hall, another quiet start for him. He's in fourth in front of Andy Skunky, who's been shuffled back a little bit. Tom Creed is off and away from the big pack behind them, and at the front of the big pack is Big Jeffrey Van Buren in seventh position. Michael van der Waal trying to make some moves. Looking very competitive already in these opening 5 minutes is the Dutchman in 8th position. Really impressive stuff from him so far. Then it's Hunt, then it's Packham and Harris as well. Oh, as commentators curse, there goes Van der Waal off the circuit. Just about maintains his position in front of Anthony Hunt, so he'll get away with that. And Joe Warner, oh, well, that was Davy Zoutenbayer getting turned round by Tony Manley, and Remy Fermi was caught up in that too. So, and Remy Fermi's just gone to the pits by the looks of it. So I don't think Zoutenbayer, Davy, will be too impressed with that. And Joe Warner ended up getting involved in all of that nonsense as well. And Remy Fermi has gone. He's no longer in the session. So Fermi was caught up in a few incidents in the opening couple of minutes, and he's caught himself up with the exit taxi from Circuit Paul Ricard. Now Neil Wright is back out on circuit, but he's a lap or two down, so it's going to be a long 54 minutes and 30 seconds for the Porsche 992 driver, the second of the two Porsches. Ferraris are all quite close together. Tom Creed's closing that gap on the two in front of him. Then it's Van der Waal behind Anthony Hunt. So it's all changing all the time here at Paul Ricard. Dennis Penders has just cleared his stop and go penalty, which he got after violating the speed limit in the pit lane. So he's had to serve 2 penalties already as the Belgian. But this is the closest, one of the closest fights on the circuit in these opening few minutes. Anthony Hunt is leading the train of cars. And this is the element that people don't realise with this ACC Race Nation League, is that you can't expect to be winning races every single week. It doesn't happen that often. It's a very competitive championship, and Hunt is discovering that in 8th place at the moment. Oh, Harris running a little bit deep there in 11th place. I think Ross will be quite delighted at the fact that at the moment that he's got through the opening 7 minutes and he's not had any contact with anyone behind him, and it's unlikely he's going to have any contact from anyone behind because he's nearly 10 seconds clear of Matthew Seller. But he'll also be delighted that he's just about hanging on to the group at the front of the race. There is Tom Creed. I said he was catching the 2 Ferraris in front of him. Well, there's the evidence right there. He's less than a second behind, and that Mustang is looking very hooked up tonight. Let's ride on board with him. I said he was looking hooked up. He nearly ran into the back of the 296 Ferrari there. I'd like to get the helmet cam. There we go. And that's Skunky just running a slightly different line to Steve Hall, but looks like those lines are quite similar in terms of overall lap time. They've got the lap traffic of Neil Wright in between themselves in this trio fight and Danny Zoutenbayer. But at the minute, Tom Creed is stalking the two Ferraris. And I think for Creed, he's going to be hoping to get that gap reduced just that touch more in the first sector and see whether he can use the ultimate top speed of the Mustang to good effect, because I feel like that car is very slippery in a straight line. You can see that Skunky's all over the back of Hall at the moment. He's right with him, and look at that, Creed closing up on the brakes again. He's very confident at the moment as the Mustang driver. But this is his opportunity now. Can he get the car turned in? He was just delayed. He just ran a touch wide at the apex. But does he now have the straight line speed to close that gap down to the Ferraris? It certainly looks like he's inching closer. 160 miles an hour. He's going to be upshifting to 6th gear for sure. And look at that, he's got some immense straight line speed in that Mustang. 175, 6, 7. Can he even hit 180? He's right in the wheel tracks. 180 it is. And if Tom Creed gets any closer, he'll have a glorious opportunity to take two Ferraris into Sainz corner. But that's a very close trio on circuit. Neil Wright is going to have to move out of the way. Oh no! Steve Hall hits the back of Neil Wright, and I think it was just a communication issue, really. It looked at, I don't think Wright did anything wrong. I think Wright just moved slightly left. He stayed on his line, and I think it was Hall that misjudged that, and it's fired him out of the top four, and that might be a big amount of damage for the Ferrari driver. Well, that is such a shame, because Hall was running a really solid race. He was under pressure from Skunky and Tom Creed, but sadly it wasn't those two that have forced the error from him. That promotes Jeffrey Van Buren and Hunt up into 7th and 6th places. Tony Manley's got some damage on his car. Zoutenbayer, Davey that is. He also... And that's Stuart Packham. There's a yellow flag for Stuart Packham. What's happened? Well, that is explained very, very quickly, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? What's happened to Stuart Packham? He's off the road in a very peculiar place. You wouldn't expect to see drivers off the road at that corner. I'm just going to return back to Stuart, just so we can see what... Has he gone over the barrier, or has he just flown into the wall on the exit of turn 10? It's a very odd place for him to be. And Tom Creed has got past Andy Skunky. The power of the Mustang has took him through. Michael van der Waal closing onto the back of Ross Harris, but I think the Lamborghini is going to stay in front of the McLaren for the time being. And Tom Creed now has got 5 seconds to try and make on Zoutenbayer in the Ferrari. And Mark Chapman is less than 2 seconds behind our race leader of Sebastian Berger. Again, different lines being used, but I think Creed ran very, very deep then at the penultimate corner. Oh, Skunky just getting over the curbs and spun up the wheels a little bit too much, and that was that. It's going to be very difficult for him to overtake that Mustang, though. Now, looking at Steve Hall's car, best lap so far was a 155.6. And he's going into the pits. I had a feeling, I was watching that lap counter and it was 3 seconds, and Steve Hall, sadly, is going to pit, fix his damage, and I imagine he will probably change his tyres. It's going to be a lot earlier than what he would have wanted, but he might have to do that to get to the end of the race and still try and salvage a result inside the top 12. There is Zoutenbayer in third position. Pender's getting right out of the way for Tom Creed and Skunky. There's Jeffrey Van Buren. And Jeffrey Van Buren's running a good race at the moment. He's in the top 6. He hadn't finished that high last season when he had his partial campaign. But he's showing some good speed here this evening. That is encouraging. And Tom Creed and Skunky are catching Zoutenbayer now that Creed is leading the pair of them. That gap now down to 4.5 seconds. So Creed's just took 4/10 out of Danny Zoutenbayer in this last half of a lap. Chapman pushing as hard as he can to close that gap down to Berger, but he can see the Porsche in front of him. 1:55 flat on the last lap for the Mustang. That was Tom Creed. For Chapman, it was also a 1:55 flat. Actually, I've just had a look at that lap time, and then Sebastian Berger's just on a 54.9, and Chapman responds with a new best lap of the race. Steve Hall is trying to get back on track after his pit stop. Does a decent job of getting out of the way and returns to the race. So he's made his pit stop, and can Steve Hall now just try and concentrate, follow the couple of cars in front of him, use them to drag him along, but he has lost an awful lot of lap time, sadly. It's a nice shot, that, of all the cars going through the sequence of corners there from turn 3 through to turn 6. There's Neil Wright after a second amount of contact now for the Porsche. He's had some bad luck this evening. Michael van der Waal did get past Ross Harris in the end for 8th place. But the Lamborghini is right with the McLaren. Let's follow them as they come out of turn 8 onto the Mistral straight, this massive straight here in Le Castellet, and we can see that this slipstream starts to take effect now for the cars behind, and the Lamborghini Huracan is closing all the time, but it's more like inching its way to the back of the McLaren, and I feel that Van der Waal's setup is going to be really important for him to maintain a top 8 finish this evening. It really does seem to help him quite a fair amount. Joe Warner, he's in 14th position. Started the race in 20th. Definitely on for his best ever race result. He's got 2 laps on Neil Wright, and I think he'll have a lap on Dennis Penders and probably the best part of a lap on Steve Hall. So Warner might be on his way to a P14 best finish, which would be a great result for him. But for Warner, I imagine his challenge today is to try and get his car into the 1 minute 59s. It'd be really good to see that speed from him today. He is up on his lap time at the moment. He's apparently half a second up on his best lap. And we're watching Warner because I'd quite like to see him get into that 1 minute 59 bracket. Again, Warner is another example of a driver who perhaps isn't the quickest driver in the field, but what he does have, what he demonstrates to the field and to newcomers, is that you don't have to be the fastest driver to get involved with ACC Race Nation, but you're developing yourself. It's about improving. It's about getting quicker all the time. And he was on his best lap, but he's just lost the back end. And I laugh lightly because it was looking so great for him. No harm done. He's only lost 2 seconds, but that's a bit of a shame. Skunky is in the pits, interestingly. So Skunky, who was fighting with Tom Creed for a spot in the top 5, has made a very early call to go into the pits. And he emerges in 12th place. That's a very early call for the Ferrari 296 driver. I do wonder why he's made that pit stop. Has he just decided tactically to get in early and get into some clean air, because he was right with Tom Creed. We shall see. Mark Chapman closing that gap on to Sebastian Berger. See if we can cut forward. It's never a quick job. And he's out and by. Just look at the lap Steve Hall there. I was wondering what had happened. So the Aston Martin. Right with the Porsche. That into the 54.4s for Chapman, who just looks like he's really connected with the Aston this season. He obviously won that race last time at round 1 in season 9 at Zolder. We didn't quite get the best results from Chapman in the end throughout the rest of the season. He had a couple of podium finishes, but it always looked like he was fighting for 2nd or 3rd place. He was always right there, but not quite making it over the line. But this season seems to have gelled with the AMR V8 Vantage, and he was almost gelling a little bit too much with the exterior walls of Paul Ricard. You don't want to go that far off the road, otherwise you might end up in Paris. But Chapman is now applying the pressure to Sebastian Berger. Look at the rear camera on the Porsche. You can see the bright blue Gulf inspired livery of Chapman, haunting and hunting his every move, tracking and tracing. Chapman just running a little bit wide there on the exit of the final corner. So 155 flat from Berger to 54.9 from Chapman, and that is a drive-through penalty for Matthew Seller for track limits. He's got that on the exit of turn 9 at Sainz, which is the right-hander at the exit of the Long Mistral Straight. Just coming up to a third of the way through this race. And 20 minutes down. Gaps of the field are spread out a little bit at the moment, but that typically tends to happen when we get into the first third of the race. But Chapman is closing the gap down to Berger on this main straight. You can see that the V8 is going to go up to 174, 5, maybe even 6 miles an hour. Not quite. But he does buzz the limiter, does Chapman, just to get the car dialed down through the right-hander. Now I wonder if Chapman has just got a touch more downforce on the front and rear wings of this car. Because the Porsche didn't look too troubled there. We'll follow with Sebastian Berger. You can see in the top right corner, you can see the rear view camera. I say rear view camera, rear view mirror, because obviously in Chapman he's got a nice plush screen and the rear facing rear view looking camera. But Berger just has the mirror, so he's got to really be navigating everything on circuit whilst also having that awareness to make sure that he doesn't make any mistakes despite the pressure being applied to him. These two are in a bit of a world of their own at the moment. 6.6 clear of Zoutenbayer, who's running in a lonely third place. The Tom Creed charge has kind of stalled for the time being. Well, let's watch as the Porsche goes out of turn 8, up through the gears now. Chapman still looking about the same distance away as he did on the last lap. Matthew Seller needs to serve that drive-through penalty, otherwise he is going to pick up an even bigger one. But the Porsche looks quite quick in a straight line. 175 miles an hour. Again, that's without the slipstream that Chapman had. So I wonder if Berger might just be a little bit protected here by the way of the fact that his Porsche seems to be designed setup wise with a little bit more top speed. Maybe that's allowing the Aston Martin behind to just stay glued to his gearbox, as you just saw. We shall wait and see. But these two are really close together now on circuit. And Chapman is looking ready to try and make an overtake somewhere. Going in towards turn 1. Chapman braking a little bit later. That's going to fire him wide at 2. He's got to ride the curb a little bit more, but nicely done from him. Chapman a little bit closer this time to Berger, and you can see that the Matthew Sellers has been disqualified for not serving his track penalty, so yeah, not ideal. That's another driver who's retired, but Chapman just can't get close enough to the Porsche. It's a fascinating fight, this one. You've got the Porsche that just has that little bit of an extra top straight line speed advantage, but the Aston Martin has the handling characteristics. But these two having a great demonstration of pure speed this evening. They have been so far in these opening 25 minutes in a class of their own. Neil Wright still carrying on at the moment. Michael van der Waal and Ross Harris are still together on circuit, and Ross has got back past the Dutchman. And they've got, I think that's John Wells in front of them. Yes, it is. Let's have a little bit of a explore back to the garage. So we've got Skunky, who made a pit stop early in the race. Steve Hall, who's made one, and John Wells. That's why John Wells is down in 15th place currently. He's currently got Joe Warner off the road, but in 12th place. Can't do lawn mowing around here. Maybe you can re-tarmac the road. Zoutenbayer Danny, that is, in 3rd place. It's Tom Creed in 4th. Jeffrey Van Buren is kind of stalking the Ford at the moment in 5th. Then it's Anthony Hunt. Ross Harris is in 7th position. There is Michael van der Waal, who we've been watching. Tony Manley in the top 9. Great drive from him. Davey Zoutenbayer, after getting caught out by Remy Fermi earlier and getting hit in the back, he's now back inside the top 10. His family counterpart is in the top 3. There is Skunky, as I said before. Dennis Penders is 14th. We saw him going off the road earlier on because of his drive-through penalty that he had to serve, as did John Wells. It seems to have gone quite well for John Wells because he's only 7 seconds behind Dennis Penders, and he's yet to make a pit stop as the Belgian. So John has made some massive inroads. Neil Wright is still going. He's having a torrid time. I've just seen him spin again. He's going into the pits. We have lost Stuart Packham from the race. We'll have to find out what happened to our reigning champion. We'll have to find out what happened to him. But once again, we follow the fight of not just Ross Harris and Michael van der Waal, but also of our 2 race leaders. But at the moment, the race has been just settling down. In the midfield pack, it's where it's settling down, but it's certainly not settling down in this front duo. Berger versus Chapman. And once again, we've seen this a number of times already over the opening 28 minutes. Chapman looking a lot closer than he did before. I don't think it's going to warrant an overtake going into turn number 9, and sure enough, he remains behind. But that pressure is going to start showing one way or another, whether it applies to Chapman or Berger. And I wonder if Chapman will be thinking about doing either the undercut or the overcut. What's his plan? Will he decide the best option is to undercut, get a new fresh set of tyres on, and then try and race after? Yellow flag still showing for the disqualified driver, which is Matthew Seller. And yeah, what did I just say, ladies and gentlemen? Is he going to do the overcut or the undercut? He does the undercut. Chapman in the pit. So that makes this next lap crucial for Sebastian Berger for this race victory. Just trying to cut forward to... Well, I was going to say Michael van der Waal and Ross Harris, but Michael van der Waal has done the same thing in his fight with the Lamborghini. He has also pitted. Joe Warner has been overtaken by Steve Hall, but he's running in 13th place, and apparently, according to the timing tower, he's 2 laps in front of Dennis Penders. Just having a look in the GT3 chat, because I want to see for a couple of drivers who... See for those that have had a few issues.
We are halfway through, not over yet.
And our race director telling us that there is half of the race remaining. We have ticked over the 30 minutes time chart. Ramy Fermi saying that he got disconnected, that's why he's out of it. And Stuart Packham saying he can't start his engine, the car's absolutely destroyed. So that's why our champion from season number 9 is out of the race. We'll find out how that incident came about. Did he have contact or did he just lose it in his own incident? Tom Creed, as a result of the pit stop, moves into 3rd place. Anthony Hunt is in 5th. Tony Manley running in 7th place. I think he'd be delighted in his aqua blue car. He's not got Davies Altenbayer too far behind him though. It's only 2.8 seconds, and I think that gap's come down recently. Is that Sebastian Berger in the pits? Yes, it is. So the Porsche is in the pits at the moment. I'm trying to get to Mark Chapman, but unfortunately it is nigh on impossible. There he is. But can Mark Chapman get past Sebastian Berger whilst he's making his pit stop? I can see Berger just moving down the pit lane now. There he is. There is our race leader. And it looks like he's going to continue to be our race leader. Yeah, there he goes. He's up to speed in the Porsche. He's going to be quite a fair chunk in front of Chapman. But I suspect... Oh, and that is... Oh, and it's a stop-and-go penalty for Tom Creed. Unbelievable. But I suspect here that Chapman's took a new set of tyres Whereas Berger has decided to carry on with the same set. Now, we saw this last week at Indianapolis when Anthony Hunt did the same strategy as what Berger is doing right now, but he lost his tyres towards the end of the race and Chapman closed right up to the back of him. Let's see how this plays out in the coming laps, because this race has got a long way to go and the strategies could certainly equalise. But right now, Sebastian Berger currently is the net race leader and he has a 4.4 second gap to the Aston Martin of Mark Chapman. Let's go back to the garage. Zoutenbayer now in the pits. Jeffrey Van Buren is on his way for another lap, so he's decided not to pit. Anthony Hunt is in the pits too. Ross Harris typically goes longer, does Ross, than most people. I imagine he will carry on. Yes, he does. And Davey Zoutenbayer, the last of the drivers yet to make a pit stop. Joe Warner is in the pits, so that's not going to make any difference to him. So Jeffrey Van Buren leads for the first time in ACC Race Nation. Good to have him up there. Ross Harris is second. Davey Zoutenbayer is into the pits. And there is the Porsche of Sebastian Berger. Where does Zoutenbayer come out in relation to these two? He was a good few seconds behind. And he's going to continue to come out a good few seconds behind. I've just seen Mark Chapman blast past the pit gantry. But Zoutenbayer will re-emerge in a on-track 5th place. Other drivers just coming out of the pits. There's Anthony Hunt. Tom Creed serving his drive-through. He's going to be really miffed at that. In fact, it's not a drive-through, is it? It's a stop-and-go penalty. So Tom Creed pulls into the pits and will be kicking himself for that. He's going to have lost a heap of time. Just looking to see Michael van der Waals going to go past him. Tony Manley gets overtaken by Steve Hull. That's a lovely move. Lovely overtake from the Ferrari driver. He just nipped past the BMW. I don't think Manley was expecting that. But Steve Hall is going to sneak himself back into the top 10. Tony Manley, though, does want to have a say in that matter. He wants to try and go around the outside, but the Ferrari has the inside line. And Steve Hall is looking like he's going to get back in the top 10, but he'll be kicking himself after what happened earlier. Tony Manley's really giving it a good shot, though, on the inside in the BMW, but Hall brakes later, maintains the position. Let's see if we can get these two on board. There's the recovering Tom Creed. Riding on board with the M4. Up through the gears, and does Steve Hall have a quick enough car in a straight line to maintain this position? Looks like he's far enough ahead, but the slipstream will be coming into effect round about now for the M4 of Tony Manley, and the Italian will try and get up to the back of that Ferrari, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen at all. And that Ferrari looking very well hooked up, and I think Hall will be disappointed. Ooh, a big slide from him though through turn 9. He doesn't want any more of those. Davey Zoutenbayer isn't too far away from Tony Manley. Can we have two Zoutenbayers in the top 10? 7 seconds is the gap at the moment. Skunky's in 6th position. He'll have that position for himself. He pitted a lot earlier, don't forget. If you might recall that Skunky pitted early, but he doesn't have Tom Creed to fight anymore thanks to the Mustang driver's penalty. So Skunky now, it's all about preserving the tyres, looking after the car, as he has a snap of oversteer on the exit of turn 7. But that'll be important for him. He needs to just preserve the car, make sure he doesn't do anything daft. Jeffrey Van Buren carries on for another lap. Ross Harris, the other driver who's yet to make a stop. Mark Chapman closing that gap down to Sebastian Berger again, but Ross Harris looks as if he's going to carry on again for another lap, and indeed he does. I said before, Ross doesn't typically take an early pit stop. He normally goes a little bit later so he can have a fast flying stint at the end with new tyres. How high can Steve Hall get then in this race? He's 9th at the minute. Probably wouldn't have expected to finish in the top 10. I mean, that would have been the goal, but I don't think he'd have expected to be in the top 10 as quickly as he's managed to get back in after his incident with Neil Wright earlier. But I don't think he's going to complain. He's had the speed tonight. Last lap he did a 57.4, but that, admittedly that was overtaking Tony Manley and battling with him through the first few corners. I'm just watching him. He's about half a second down his best lap so far. He's doing a 56. Where's Michael van der Waal? .56.7. 56.3 on that last lap for van der Waal. 156.3. To see what we can see with Steve Hall's time. So he's lapping a touch quicker than van der Waal, but a tenth of a second per lap is not going to be enough with 21 minutes and 5 seconds remaining on the clock. He definitely needs to be making further inroads into the Dutchman than that to catch up to him. And if we have a little think about 21 minutes remaining just below that, it's going to be about 9 laps remaining. If Hall wants to catch him, it's going to need to be taking about a second and a bit per lap out of the number 71 McLaren. Zoutenbayer still running well. We've got Ross Harris in the pits. So Ross deciding now is the time for the Lamborghini to get a new set of tyres on with 20 minutes pretty much to go. He's had a good stint, has Harris, in second place, but the guy who's had the best stint and the most time in the sun leading this race here at Circuit Les Arts is Jeffrey Van Buren. He's never been this high up in ACC Race Nation. We've not seen him right at the front of the field, but it's been a really encouraging display from the number 187. But yeah, Jeffrey Van Buren having a great time. Ross Harris, I think, is going to emerge. Well, he's coming out of the pits now, actually. So where is Ross? He's in 6th position. He's going to be in front of Anthony Hunt by the looks of it. No, he's going to be behind Anthony Hunt. The timing tower is getting a little bit confused. There's Anthony Hunt going on to turn. And there is Ross Harris. So Ross Harris up to 7th place. He's stayed in front of Van der Waal by just a few seconds. Or barely a few seconds, to be honest with you. 2 seconds to be precise. But Ross Harris having the time of his life at the moment. Steve Hall running in 9th. You've got Tony Manley on for a top 10 finish. Zoutenbayer in 11th. Tom Creed now trying to charge up to the back of everybody. He'll probably be the angriest man in France. Then it's John Wells, Dennis Penders, Joe Warner and Neil Wright, who said before it's a bit of a pointless hour, but he will continue to drive around so he gets his points, and that's what it's about. You earn points providing that you finish the race. One driver who won't be getting that is Matthew Seller, unfortunately, thanks to his disqualification. I wonder what Jeffrey Van Buren's plan is. Is he going to? How long is he going to wait? And where will he feed out, actually? Because Anthony Hunt is 6th, and he's going to be close to Hunt, I think, because Van Buren was a good distance up the road from Ross Harris. We don't have the timing gap. But that can certainly that gap can set. That's going to be an interesting gap to see where he feeds out Van Buren. Really will be interesting to see how he does. Mark Chapman in the fight for the race lead has got the gap down to 2 seconds, so Chapman's new tyres are certainly giving him that extra advantage. There goes Van Buren, he's into the pits, gets the car stopped at the 50 mile an hour marker, 50 kilometre an hour marker, and into the pits he goes. So let's see where he feeds out. News from the pit lane. I had a chat with Stuart Packham. He says that a car just appeared from off track. I tried to avoid it, hit him, then hit the wall at speed, windscreen cracked, and couldn't start the car. He also says that his engineer turned the light off on his way out of the garage. So that's a shame for Stuart. But race over and done for our reigning champion. That'll certainly provide a dropped score for him this evening. .77 is the gap now between the top two. Van Buren is on his way, so Danny Zoutenbayer is going to take third place back as he puts another lap on Neil Wright. Where is Van Buren? He's not far away. He might get out in front of Skunky here. That's going to be very close. Here goes Van Buren's up to speed. He's out in front of Skunky. And Jeffrey Van Buren has had a fantastic stint out in front. And it's put him into what is going to be 4th place. That is a great effort. And Van Buren, who, you know, a couple of times last season he was skirting around with the top 10. Right now he's on for his best results with ACC Race Nation. It's a great drive. He's got work to do. He's got to try and get those tyres up to temperature, fend off Skunky, who's having a quietly solid race here in 5th position. Anthony Hunt isn't too far away in the Mustang. Then the two closest drivers on circuit of Ross Harris and Michael van der Wal. These two have literally been all together all the way through the race. And the gap at the lead is continuing to come down. Sebastian Berger is going to have the pressure applied to him once again in the final quarter of an hour with this race. Just like to try and get on board with Michael van der Wal. There we go, that's a good time to get on board with him. So up through the gears for van der Wal, and Ross Harris already weaving across the road. But van der Wal not bothering to play the slipstream games with the driver in front of him. And he's deciding he's just going to sit behind him. He's not close enough at the minute to get past. Just noticed as well that van der Wal had changed his mapping settings, so I wonder if the Dutchman is getting ready for an attack. That's a slide through turn number 10. Survives that little slide through there. In fact, he prospered from it really. He's closed that gap visually up to the back of the Brit in front of him. And Harris now is going to have a fight on his hands. Joe Warner still circulating 15th place. That will give him his best ever result in ACC Race Nation. Ooh, Ross running wide. I think that was because van der Wal just stuck his nose up at the inside of the final corner. It's getting very tricky between the two of them now. Well, van der Wal is looking to repass the Lamborghini we ride on board with. You can see visually how the gap ebbs and flows through the corners and the braking zones on this circuit. Van der Wal with a tighter line there on the exit of 6. Into 7 they go, but he just has a touch of understeer. But he gets a nice line for turn 8 here, and this is the chance now for van der Wal. He's got in the slipstream, he's right there, and Harris starts weaving and is actually pulling away a little bit from the McLaren in the initial stage of the Mistral straight, and Ross still giving it the big ones down the main straight just to try and stop the McLaren from going through, and sure enough it's worked. Van der Waal not playing those games, he just wants to try and make an overtake somewhere that can catch out the Lamborghini driver. Anthony Hunt is catching Skunky for 5th place as well, so that might come back together. Because Jeffrey Van Buren is pulling away from him, although having said that on the last time he got there, it looks like the gap's gone back out again. Oh, snap of oversteer for Van der Waal. He'll get away with it, but track limit violation for sure. Can't afford to have too many of those. Oh, that's a little bit wide from Harris. That's the opportunity that Van der Waal was looking for. Is he going to try and go all the way around the outside? He's actually got it a little bit too wrong through the final corner, and Van der Waal gives Harris as much racing room as he could ever need. As we move on to lap 24, these two are putting up a really good fight. Really good to see. Zoutenbayer still in 3rd place on his own, but Mark Chapman, he's got a car between himself and Berger, and sure enough John Wells moves out of the way. I'll just give Berger a little bit of respite for these last 11 1/4 minutes. There's Steve Hall in 9th position, Skunky in 5th place. And yeah, Anthony Hunt back on the mission again. He's back within 4 seconds of Skunky. That gap changing all the time. Ross Harris again moving all over the shop, but Michael van der Waal is slowly following him this time. It does look as if the McLaren is really strong in the final sector of the lap. Which basically starts from here on in. Oh, a little bit wide. Van der Waal's going to be underneath going at turn 9, but Van der Waal gives a lot of racing room. Michael van der Waal being very fair today, which I'm sure Harris will appreciate. But we can see the rear diffuser of that Lamborghini. We can make out the inlets in there. That's how close the McLaren is to the back of him. And that's wide again from Harris. He's had another snap of oversteer. To the outside goes the McLaren this time. Can he feed it round? No, he can't. But he's really underneath the rear wing now. You can see the Pirelli stickers on the back of that Lamborghini. Harris defends to the inside. Van der Waal gives them the chop back onto the inside. He's going to try and brake a little bit later. Here he goes up into 7th place, but he snaps the car under braking. A bit of oversteer and Harris goes back through. I feel that these two are going to be battling all the way through this race. It's going to make my job very difficult in trying to watch these two and the lead for the race victory. Oh, Van der Waal right on the apex and a little bit more, using all of the road on the exit of turn 7. Ross gets the car lined up a lot better on the exit of 8. And again, traction control mapping changing for the McLaren driver. He's clearly trying to use all of the revs available to him in the 720S Evo. On the exit of turn 7, he's almost buzzing the limiter. But Harris is remaining in front. We can see that the Lamborghini we're with at the minute is trying to soak up as much pressure as he possibly can. Chapman and Berger for the race leader very, very close. I'll cut back to them in a moment. Look how close to the back he is. Can Michael van der Waal get up this time? It just seems that Harris has been struggling with this right-hander. And yeah, he's done it again. He's run wide again at the penultimate corner. Oh, and van der Waal has lost the back end. He's going to get away with it. There was no contact between the two. That was all clean, and Van der Waal just lost the back end. So that's going to put a little bit of a temporary pause on that fight. But this fight doesn't have a temporary pause with 7.5 minutes to go. Chapman finding himself in a similar situation to last week, looking like the clearly faster driver, wanting to get the race victory. If it could give me the car, there we go. Like I said before, Chapman has had one race victory, and that was at the opening round of Season 9. We are in the second round of Season 10. There's a yellow flag, as always, for the disqualified car that's in the pits. I don't think that necessarily needs to be a double yellow, but there we are. But Chapman's got that new tyre on. And unless Berger's pit crew were just incredibly quick, he is going to be really starting to struggle now. In comparison to the Aston Martin that he's trying to defend this race victory on. Trying to take another victory, another debut victory potentially. A season debut victory, I should say. Joe Warner just in front of them. That's going to provide a little bit of angst for the Porsche. He's not going to quite know which way the McLaren's going to go. And sure enough, Warner actually kind of might be helping a little bit here, to be honest with you, for Berger, because he's going to get a bit of slipstream. And yeah, that's giving him a nice clear run out of turn 8. So an inadvertent helper from Warner there. He's not providing a lawn mowing service this week, is Mr. Warner. He's providing a lovely wind tunnel service for Porsche drivers. But Berger remains in the lead of this race with less than 6 minutes to go. Look at the confidence that Chapman has though through signs at turn 9. And Anthony Hunt is right with Skunky as well, so that's closed up. So as I said before, this race in the middle part does tend to quieten a little bit. But then it closes up, and sure enough, Anthony Hunt now less than a second behind the Ferrari 296. That trio of cars trio of Ferraris have been in 3rd, 4th and 5th since about minute 5. And Hunt wants to come and mess all of that up. Van der Waal is now back with Ross Harris. He's very close to the back of the Lamborghini. Oh, I thought he was going to try. Yeah, I thought he was doing that. And that was never going to work. And the two are into the wall. And he's going to go off it back into the road. Oh. That was always good. I just had a sinking feeling that Van der Waal was going to try it up the inside. It's not really an overtaking opportunity. And sadly, Van der Waal has come off a lot worse. And some would say arguably so for trying an overtake there. Ross Harris continues on, but he's now got Steve Hall behind him, and Ross also will have had damage from that. Thankfully for Harris, it's not been the worst accident he's had, but again, he won't be impressed. He won't be impressed at all with that. Anthony Hunt still on the back of Skunky. Davy Zoutenbayer right with Tony Manley, so it's all coming back together with just 4 minutes to go. Steve Hall can't believe his luck because he was in the top 10. He's picked his way through the drivers and he's now into 8th place with a 7th place maybe as an option for him if he can get past Ross Harris. But Ross knows how to defend, and he's got quite a quick Lamborghini in a straight line this evening. So let's see if the former champion can get past Ross Harris. We'll wait and find out. Chapman is still on the back of Berger. We're going to have 2 more laps of this race if my calculations are correct. Anthony Hunt, I think, has got past Skunky. Yes, he has. The power of the Mustang brings the race winner from round number 1 into the top 5. Steve Hall trying to get past. He's going to pick up a track limits violation for that one. And Tom Crees is right behind Michael van der Waal. So there's lots of fights going on this last few tours of this brilliant race circuit. It is absolutely all to play for. Hall is not going to be close enough to the back of him. Zoutenbayer is close enough to the back of Manley. He's going to go to the outside. Are they really going to go side by side? Not quite. I think Zoutenbayer is going to have Manley cleared, but he leaves the door open for the Italian and he comes back through. The 318 stays in front. Michael van der Waal has been overtaken by Tom Creed. It's not out of the question yet that Tom Creed could miraculously end up back in the top 10. Well, Davies out and by. Oh, that's a little bit wide and onto the AstroTurf for the Dutchman. But this is the fight that I'm going to concentrate on this fight now, because look at Mark Chapman trying to go all the way around the outside. He doesn't quite make it back on to the track limits. Okay, there, but he can see what he's seen for most of this race. That Porsche in front of him. He knows there's a chance. That's wide from Berger. But Chapman just can't get on the power to launch past. Steve Hall has overtaken Ross Harris for 7th place. Down through the gears. First gear for the Aston Martin, but not the best line. And that's just going to give Berger another chance for a bit of respite. And it is the final lap of the race. The final lap. Sebastian Berger has just 5.1 kilometres of tarmac in front of him to take his first race win. With the team here at ACC Race Nation, other gaps are still being fought over. Anthony Hunt looks like he's pulled away from Skunky now. Surely not for Chapman. I didn't think he was going to go for a lunge there. That would have been very brave. Berger's just got to get his line right through 7 and 8, because Chapman's Aston is just not quick enough down the main straight. No matter how close he gets, he's not going to have an opportunity into turn 9. So Chapman's going to have to get creative. If he wants a race victory, he's going to have to do something in the final sector, I feel. A little bit further back, there's lots of other fights going on, but we're keeping our eyes and attention on this 30th and final lap. On board with the Aston Martin of Mark Chapman. Look at the speed he's gained through there. He's got so much more tyre grip than the Porsche. This might be his chance then, coming into the next 2 corners at turn 9 and 10, but Berger's just keeping a nice tight line. That's going to work for the Porsche. He's going to have to think of something else now. Into turn 12 we go. He runs it out wide. There's Chapman. He's got a nice line actually coming out of turn 12. He's all over the curb. If he's going to lunge it, it's going to have to be the final corner, but Berger will be wise to that. Little bit wide for the Porsche, but it's actually a really nice line from the race leader, and Chapman runs it out wide, and that's his chance gone. It's going to be, after sustaining all of that pressure, Sebastian Berger, who wins here at Paul Ricard. Chapman once again finishing in 2nd place, but it's another great drive from him. Danny Zoutenbayer, we didn't see much of him, but he's going to get a podium, which he'll be delighted with, and sure enough he celebrates as he comes across the line. So Danny Zoutenbayer continuing on his good streak of form. Jeffrey Van Buren, fantastic results for him in 4th place. We'll talk about driver of the day in a moment. Anthony Hunt finishes 5th ahead of Skunky. Steve Hall snatches, I think he's going to snatch 7th place. I'm going to look a little bit further back, because I know that there was a close gap between Tom Creed and Tony Manley, but that's just gapped out a little bit. It is going to be Steve Hall in 7th place. He's going to get past the recovering Ross Harris. It's a shame that Ross Harris and Michael van der Waal had that contact, because they were just glued together all the way through the race. But it is Steve Hall who takes 7th. Ross Harris in 8th place. Davy Zoutenbayer Family Relations in 9th place, just in front of Tom Creed, who recovers to the top 10. Tony Manley in 11th, and Michael van der Waal will be in 12th place. Drivers that have already seen the checkered flag include John Wells, a lap down. Dennis Penders, also a lap down. Joe Warner, best ever result for him, in 15th position. Neil Wright, 16th, who just couldn't buy any luck today. Stuart Packham, with his massive accident early on in the race, he retired. Joel Van Beek retired. Remy Fermi looked like he exited from the lobby. And, of course, Matthew in the BMW M4, Matthew Salah, he was disqualified due to not serving his penalty. Well, that was a brilliant end to that race. We had a lull in action in the middle part of the race, but it came together all at the end. It was absolutely fabulous to watch. I really enjoyed commentating on that event. Really wonderful to see. And obviously the drivers will be settling down now after that, trying to calm down, cool themselves off after what has been quite a challenging race this evening. Next week, the drivers have got a completely different style of challenge in the GT3 cars. They'll be heading off to the Hungaroring in Budapest for round 3. That's going to be a challenging circuit, and I'm definitely sure that there's going to be a lot of options in terms of strategy for the drivers that evening. But that's next Wednesday. Right now, the drivers are finished for this evening. If you are interested in getting involved, do get in touch with ACC Race Nation on Discord. Feel free to send a message and I can get in touch with you via a Discord invite for you, and you can see what all of the action is like here with this brilliant community. But I've been Jack Millington, your commentator for this evening and throughout Season 10 at ACC Race Nation. What a race we had in the end. Fantastic efforts in the end from Sebastian Berger to take that race victory after all the pressure he had from Mark Chapman, but it's the first win of the season for him. Wherever you might be in the big wide world, have a good one, and we will see you. Actually, we won't see you, because there's one other thing that I need to say. My driver of the day, it's a toss-up between Jeffrey Van Buren and our race winner, Sebastian Berger. I think I'm going to have to give it to Sebastian Berger just because his defensive ability from stopping Chapman getting through was really fantastic. He put his car in the right place. He did a really great job. Jeffrey Van Buren's so close to getting that extra point, but that extra point is going to go the way of Jeffrey Van Buren. And now, on that note, it is really time to end. Thank you very much for watching, and wherever you might be in the big wide world, have a good one, and we will see you for the next event next Wednesday at the Hungaroring.